Jackson Arnold has to be better this week against Tulane.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers for tuning in and subscribing to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is my man, Jay Smith. You can follow him at Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams. You can follow me at John9Williams. And we're going to start off with Jackson Arnold.
Yep.
There is a lot to talk about with QB1. We discussed some of it on several episodes this week. But Jay, where specifically do you think Jackson Arnold has to be better this week against Tulane?
To me, I feel like we need to see more of the leadership with him around his wide receiver room, right? We know that we're playing a lot of young players. And the only unfortunate piece for Jackson Arnold is no matter what Emmett Jones teaches, what Seth Luttrell calls, when you get on the field and you actually see what the defense is in front of you, at some point you got to start figuring stuff out yourself, right? We talked about it last show, like with Adam Murray, the former Georgia quarterback. He broke down that some of the plays, and one of the things he pointed out that I thought was really critical that fans, we need to understand as we're watching the game ourselves is when the wide receivers go out there and run their play, in a lot of situations, some of the wide receivers' job is to clear out the defense so somebody else can catch the ball, right? Yeah. That, to me, is where we're going to need to see Jackson Arnold do a little bit more directing. Unfortunately, he has to grow up faster than we initially wanted him to. At first, we were wanting to be able to ease him in with the veteran presence around him. Veteran presence ain't around no more. You're going to have to go ahead and be that veteran and take control. So, John, I'm thinking that one way that feels like would work in this situation is not only the dinking and dunking and the screens, but really directing where the wide receivers are. We've seen him change plays before or change routes. I think he's going to have to do a little bit more of that in order to really get himself and those wide receivers in a rhythm. Am I off base?
No, I don't think so at all. He's got the experience. You know, aside from Deion Burks, Jackson Arnold is the experienced voice in the offense, you know, at least in the passing game. You know, you got Jake Roberts, you got Bauer Sharp, but you need your quarterback to be a leader out there on the field. Some of the visibly frustrated moments that you saw out of him, he's got to rein that in. He's got to keep it what do the quarterbacks always talk about? Cool, calm, collected. And Jackson Arnold's got to find that. And listen, I get the Houston game was frustrating for him. It was frustrating for all of us watching it as well. But when you're the quarterback, you can't let any of that show. At least when you're a young quarterback really trying to establish yourself. Like you're Tom Brady, you're a 10-year veteran that's won multiple Super Bowls. You could probably get away with some of that on the sideline, some of that visibly frustrated stuff. But when you're a young quarterback and you're still really trying to prove yourself and trying to earn your teammates' respect on the field, you've done it off the field, you've done it through the offseason. Now you're trying to do it on the field in a game that matters. You've got to keep it cool. You've got to keep it calm and collected. And that'll go a long way for the younger guys too. Because if they see QB1 losing it after he throws it into a defender on, you know, a sprint out or he overthrows a guy, then how's the young wide receiver that's a true freshman going to respond when he drops a ball? No, you got to be able to erase everything and you got to move on. You got to move on quickly and just say, hey, we're going to get him next time. You got to keep that confidence.
Yeah, and the wide receivers got to also build that trust with him too, right? You know, they've got to execute whenever the ball comes to them. So not only did he throw the good balls, the wide receivers need to catch said balls. The running backs need to catch those balls. The tight ends need to catch those balls. So it's a combination, of course, of everything. But you're spot on with that. You're now that guy, right? You're the leader. Obviously Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell trust you. They trust you being out there. You know, they know that this offense was built with you in mind. Now you need to go out there and execute on it like you did when you was in high school, like you did against Arizona. Even after your bad moments, you calmed down, you got cool, you got collected, and you started cooking, right? Yeah. Bring that back. Give me some of the plays where you tell Deion Burks, hey, switch it up. You're going to do a fade and I'm going to launch it to you. Perfect. And then you drop a beautiful dime in the end zone. Give me those plays where you look at Jalil Farouk and you saw the defense change. You tap your legs and you get them into a slant. Do that with someone else, right? And I understand that that's where the struggle, I guess, for us even as fans to recognize is we also have to take into account the experience of the wide receivers and their ability to adjust themselves in that. Burks is being doubled. We're going to keep reminding y'all that. Everyone knows he's the threat. So they're forcing everybody else to prove that they are those guys. Now is their opportunity to do it. Go out there and prove it.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this is just when things are there, just throw the ball. Like, don't try. It's that whole pitchers thing, right? Don't try to place the ball. Don't try to aim the ball. Just throw the ball. The same thing applies to Jackson Arnold here. Like, don't try and throw the quote unquote perfect ball. Just use your mechanics and throw a good ball. Like, throw the freaking football. Don't try to, get cute with the ball. Just throw it where it's supposed to be, where the wide receiver is expecting it to be, and that'll help everybody. Everybody's got to be on the same page, but if there's confusion about where the ball is supposed to be going, or the quarterback's not feeling confident in how he's throwing the ball, dude just needs to let it rip. Like, I don't care if you overthrow a dude by 20 yards against Tulane to start the game. Just let one fly. Just
don't let it fly to bounds.
Just get your arm loose, man. Just get your arm loose, get out of your head a little bit, and just let it fly. And I think it's going to come together a little bit more. I think as these wide receivers get a little bit more experience, we'll see the offense start to click a little bit better. I was reminded of, last season, Oklahoma goes up to Cincinnati. They play the Bearcats, which turned out to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 last year. And what happened with the offense? They were held to 20 points in that game. You had to win a defensive battle. So it's easy to sit here and really, react to what we saw on the field against Houston on Saturday night and think, man, this offense is going nowhere. But what happened? Oklahoma's offense got better as the season went along, especially as they answered some of the offensive line questions. Obviously, they had better wide receiver depth at that time last year and throughout the entire year last year. But let's just not jump off the cliff just yet. Let's give it time. Let these things develop. And I think this is going to get a little bit better. Will it get to 40 points per game better? We'll find out. But I do think it's going to find a little bit more cohesion and chemistry, at least starting this week.
Yeah, I'm not down on Jackson Arnold overall. The Jackson Arnold experiment to me is still in full effect. It's just now needs to be kind of expedited more than we want it, right? Like I said, my anticipation for him was always for him to be eased into it, that he'd be able to play a lot more free because the defense is going to be the one that's going to carry us. And the experienced wide receivers are going to be able to clean up a lot of the stuff that he does. Like, think about it this way, right? Whenever you see a quarterback in college dominate, I'm going to give you a name, like a Mac Jones. We saw Mac Jones cook for Alabama, and he was just, passes were on point, just eating them alive, right? He goes to the NFL and struggles. And you can look at any other quarterback outside of him. So many of them struggle. Why? Well, because at the collegiate level, either the talent around you cleans up some of the bad passes you may do, the mistakes you may make, or they are just so good that they're always open. When you get to the next level, you got to start throwing guys open. You got to start anticipating even more. And that's when you start seeing people struggle where they actually have to figure that portion out. You're playing the top 1% at that point. Here now for Jackson, it's kind of in a similar situation. You need to go out there and play still free and loose, but you need to go ahead and get anticipatory. And he has it. We've synced it. Again, we've synced it in some situations. I just want him to get more comfortable and show us that Jackson Arnold that we was excited about, baby. I had Texas fans jump in my comments say, hey, I watched him play in high school. He'll be all right. This is just a bump in the road. He'll get there. And when he does, we'll all be excited again.
Yeah. Patience matters. And I was talking to a work colleague earlier the other day, and just going through the litany of injuries that Oklahoma is facing. It's not that they're dealing with one or two key players out. They're dealing with like a half a dozen key players that are out of their first team offense right now. And that stuff matters. And I know we're not going to sit here and make excuses, and you don't want to hear excuses, but that stuff matters. Like, it is a part of the issue. Now we just hope that people get healthy And as they get healthy, things start to come together for the Oklahoma Sooners.
Agreed.
We're going to talk about running back room expectations because so far it's been kind of hit and miss, but it kind of was last year again too. Let's discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Now that we're here in football season, I'm going to tell you and be honest, one of the biggest struggles I have is getting meals cooked at home, right? If I'm either recording, talking about ball, studying ball, or I'm going to one of my kids' soccer matches, right? And because I'm trying to raise some, high-end athletes, I got to make sure that they're getting some good food in their system. So we turned to Factor. They've got all the great stuff to help you meet your wellness goals, from like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and as well as Keto, all chef-crafted meals, which are awesome. They're fresh, never frozen, and they're dietitian approved. So I'm putting the right nutrients into these athletes so that they can, maybe be world-class athletes one day. The cool thing is they got 35 different meals with more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, so you'll always have new flavors to explore. And so from breakfast to dessert, they've got everything you need to stay fueled as well as to keep going forward. So make sure you check them out and make your lifestyle a lot effortless. Head over to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50, that's the number 50, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That code is LOCKEDONCollege50, the number 50 at factormeals.com/LOCKEDONCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next meal while your subscription is active. And also, you've heard a lot of us talking about FanDuel here on Locked On, America's #1 sports book. Well, guess what? We've got something different for you, doing something special. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you'll get 3 weeks free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. I leverage YouTube TV and it's awesome. And then you can take your base package from YouTube TV and you'll watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. There's no contract, which is dope. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all Sunday, 9:15 only pregame money line bets. Profit bets will be live starting Thursday on the 12th. And visit your account page now to learn more about your boost. And just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sports book.
So we're not quite sure what we're getting out of the running back room just yet. Jovantae Barnes has looked good in spurts. Taylor Tatum has looked good in spurts. Gavin Zawchuk hasn't found a clear runway to take off from yet. Sam Franklin looked good, but got 0 carries in the game against Houston. So Jay, where do we go, man? Where do we go at running back?
It's kind of weird, man, because as you mentioned before, we had this similar struggle last season, right? We play Arkansas State, we rushed for 220 yards, and we rushed for 220 yards against Temple as well, right? It was a running back by committee. And then against SMU, we kind of struggled. We had 189 yards rushing, and then Tulsa, we had only 119. So it was like the run started to go lower. Cincinnati at 103. So you started to see it just went backwards, right? This year, I do feel like we're healthier at running back. We're better. Of course, the bigger thing now is the offensive line. The offensive line's cohesion, all of the moving parts that we had to do because of the injuries, and at the same time, not really wanting to play as many freshmen as we probably are going to have to in due time, but due to all the injuries. At this point, man, it's the running back by committee. I don't know what DeMarco Murray is going to do. I'm hoping DeMarco Murray is looking at this like, all right, you're the one, Barnes, you're the hardest runner right now. Like, you're running the hardest, and we can tell. He looks like he wants to prove that he's back. Zawchuk, you're still the patient guy, but you're a breakout. We may need to put you in more for, like, screens or something like that. Bring in Tatum on the two-back sets, and then say, Sam Franklin, just go run and get 1,300 yards again like you did last season. It's really up in the air, but I'm going to be honest. I want to see more Barnes. I also want to see more Franklin together. Mm-hmm. Let me see those two as a tandem, see if they wake up. And then maybe if you mix in Zawchuk at that point and the offensive line's a little bit more warmed up, he can break off for a deep run. That's what I've been thinking about personally.
Yeah, I would like to see more Sam Franklin. He's just a very decisive runner. He just gets downhill really, really fast. Same with Jovantae Barnes. Like listen, I know Jovantae Barnes had the bad run where he just ran straight into the back of the running backs, didn't try to make a cut or anything. Back of the running backs, back of the offensive line, didn't try to cut outside, didn't try to break away from anything. Nope. It was not a good look for him. I'm sure that got pointed out on tape, but still, he's proving right now that he is your best option. I know everybody's really eager to see Taylor Tatum, and listen, I want to see him too. I want to see him get the ball in some space, throw some running back swing passes out to him, throw some screens to him, let him get the ball in space and use his speed and his agility to make people miss out in the open field. But for legitimate run plays, to me, Jovantae Barnes and Sam Franklin, to me, are the best two options for DeMarco Murray in the running game because they're going to get downhill quick. And that's the best way to help a struggling offensive line, not to sit back in the backfield and dance and try to, pick the perfect spot. It's, hey, this one's supposed to go through between the guard and the tackle. Cool. I'm hitting the guard and the tackle hole. Hopefully it's going to be open. If not, we're going to try and bounce it outside. But I think Jovantae Barnes gives you a little bit in the passing game too. He's a pretty good receiver. He's a really good pass pro blocker. And then, it could be one of those situations where we still don't really have a definitive answer on the running game for half the season until we get Branson Hickman back, until we have a little bit more certainty of who's going to be playing left tackle. That's kind of where it's at, man. It's just because of the injuries along the offensive line, the injury to Jake Taylor added on top of it, it makes projecting what this running game can do very, very difficult. But if you at least can get a couple guys in there that are going to give you at least 3 yards every time they touch the ball, that's still going to be better than, hey, Gavin Sawchuk, 4 carries for 4 yards, man. I love Gavin Sawchuk. I think he's a really, really talented player. I think he's got a lot of potential to be a very impactful player, both at the collegiate level and maybe even at the NFL level because of his big time speed. But for what Oklahoma needs right now, he's just not a fit unless you want to put him out there in third and long situations.
He'd been so much better if we had a much more veteran offensive line, right?
Yeah.
If we weren't really working in a new line, then I would say, hey, we got a veteran line, put him back there. He's going to hit the hole and he's going to be gone. We need more decisiveness. We need better blocking right now. I mean, I think grading wise, he graded okay in pass block or whatnot, but we saw where he gave up a big time sack. Dude just ran right because he was supposed to go one play. He didn't go. And that's just experience. It's nothing against him or his capabilities long term. Experience gets you, right? We all learn. We learn better hands-on anyway. Mm-hmm. I think for him, 2-back sets, you put him out there because he becomes a throw threat and a run threat, right? A catch threat and a run threat. He's going to be one of those players that teams are going to have to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a good way to get some of the pressure off of J.A. to where, even though Jackson Arnold, is still going to have the ball in his hands, teams are going to have to account for people around him. And I think especially as we talk about Tulane in a minute, one of the key things is going to be getting a lot of these dudes out there in space. You'll hear me preach this over and over because that's the one thing that we have an advantage with a lot. We've got a lot of skills dudes that if you can get the ball to them in space, they're hard to tackle. And we've seen them been able to break out. Now we need to give them the opportunity to do that. Get them in a spot where they can outrun the defenders and go. We just got to get them the ball.
Yeah, I think if you can use a guy like Gavin Sawchuk to challenge the perimeter with his speed, with just a quick dump off to him, and just let him run. We haven't seen him catch the ball a lot, but when he does get targets, it's pretty fun to watch because of his speed and his quickness. And just let him threaten defenses that way for now as you get your offensive line situation going. Hey, if they want to go into a situation where, hey, we're going to throw the ball 50 times, but we're going to dink and dunk like crazy, by all means do it. But let's get the ball in the running back hands a little bit too. Let's get the ball in the running back's hands. Let's use everybody, tight ends, wide receivers, all of it. I think the running backs can be a weapon. We're just not quite utilizing them just yet. And I'm looking forward to figuring out what the hierarchy is going to be long term.
Right. And I know DeMarco Murray is very particular about the way the running backs perform in practice before he lets them play. You got to earn your opportunity on the field. So I trust his judgment when it comes to that. I'm curious to see, though, it feels like it still feels like to me that Barnes is the hardest worker right now. And that's not saying that Gavin Sawchuk doesn't. I think Gavin Sawchuk works his butt off too, especially in practices. But it feels like Barnes wants it more because I think he, if anybody, really wants to prove to everybody that he still got it. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and let him show it.
I mean, so far through 2 games, I like what I've seen. You know, he's showed good burst. He's shown to be a forceful runner. He's someone who is showing a little bit of agility. He's, making people miss a little bit more. Had an opportunity at a touchdown in the first game, but got shoestring tackled and was able to come up short. But we'll see, man. I'll be really curious to see how Oklahoma's run game attacks Tulane's defense, which is pretty good. We're going to face a really tough Tulane Green Wave team coming up this Saturday. What do we expect from them? Before we get to our keys to the game and breaking it all down on our Friday show, we're going to give you a little bit of a primer for Tulane coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. When you're looking to hire for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a role, they might be open to the perfect job. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job boards. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. It's why 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. So go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. As you think about the Tulane Green Wave, Jay, what's the first thing that really jumps out to you?
That Summerall's walk into a really good situation that Willie Fritz left him, right? He didn't walk in with minimal talent. They still retained some good ones, and they got some really good transfers. I think the big thing that a lot of people have slept on is how many transfers that they actually brought in and how productive they could potentially be. That Darian Mensah kid, I was really shocked that he won the offensive job. I went and looked at his numbers. He's completing 70% of his passes right now. 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's playing really good football, John. But he doesn't run a lot. He scrambles, but he doesn't run a lot. So he's one of those elusive dudes that goes out there and makes something happen. He's a quote-unquote gamer. We're going to have our hands full in making him and keeping him in pressure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's a quarterback that, he does a lot of things well. He runs well, he throws well. They're getting him into opportunities that to allow him to be successful too. They're not throwing the ball downfield. They're being successful because they're wide open down the field. This is a Tulane Green Wave offense that I think has schemed some things really well, and they looked really good against Kansas State. And so if they can continue to do that and they're able to find ways to get their receivers open against Oklahoma, it could be for a difficult challenge for the Sooners. You look at his passing, he's only attempted 9 passes, 20 or more yards down the field, and he's completed 5 of them. But he's living right now in the short to intermediate game where he has just 5 incompletions from 0 to 20 yards. So he's doing a really, really good job at, placing the ball where it needs to be placed. And he is challenging all fields. He's not living, 10 yards and in. He's able to get to the intermediate spots too. And I think that that's going to be an area that challenges Oklahoma because, listen, Oklahoma's linebackers are their strength, right? Well, Tulane runs the ball really, really well. So Oklahoma's linebackers are going to be focusing on slowing down the Tulane rushing attack. Well, that's going to be an opportunity for Tulane to use some play action pass, try to get behind the linebackers, and see if they can pick up some chunk gains in that intermediate part of the field.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to what our defense is going to look like in this game. It feels like we may actually see our actual defense this week. Yeah, I went back and looked because someone had asked me the question. He was like, hey, how many players played in the Houston game. So we know like 80-something players played in Temple, which as blasé as that Temple game was, 80-something players playing is huge.
That's a lot.
That's a massive number of players getting some sort of experience actually underneath the lights. Mm-hmm. But it also exposes you to a lot of lack of experience in things that can happen. Yep. This last one, defensively, we played 27 players. That's 2 deep, minimum. Almost 3 deep there, right? Offense, we played 18. So you got out there, and that's what, 45 players played in this game? That's 2 whole, rosters of players. That's pretty darn good to see. So it definitely means that we were giving everybody the opportunity to get some experience and actually get themselves on tape against a team that doesn't know what they're going to be doing, right? Because, camp, you can only do so much in practices. I'm curious to see what the defense implementation is against Temple. I know that we're going to have to show some things because Temple's going to be a challenge, but I know that we also want to make sure that when we prepare for Tennessee, that we're not giving out too much. But one good thing, though, John, I was thinking about this too, is Mensah's going to be a great primer in preparation for Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Because Nico doesn't run a lot. He scrambles, and then, he'll run for like touchdowns on short yardage stuff. Mensah is similar. They're similar in game. Now, Nico's taller, pretty accurate, got a rocket arm, but statistically, he ain't that far off from what Darian Mensah's put up. So this may be a good way for us to see, all right, this is what we're going to expect against Tennessee on the offensive side. The defense can go out there and really show out.
Yeah, we also got Mario Williams coming back to town, who's having a really nice start to his season with the Green Wave. 10 catches, 252 yards, looking really, really good. The promise of the really highly recruited wide receiver is starting to show out on the field, right? Developmental game. He's in what now? Year 4 of college football, and it's now coming together for him.
That's what happens with most players. It takes that 3 years for them to really show out.
Yeah.
Right. You got that rare breed that shows up, an Adrian Peterson type of Tommy Harris, a player that comes in, Gerald McCoy, that first year, and they just all of a sudden destroy people. Dylan Stewart over there at South Carolina, that dude, I swear that doesn't make any sense that he's that good. But you have those situations where a player will come out of nowhere. You're like, dude, where did he come from? Like, he's been playing this long. Some players just have that natural instinct. Right now, Taylor Tatum, when he got his runs, he was getting it in the first game. We probably see some of that more later. Defensively, though, we got to Jaden Jackson, right? He's getting massive push, and he's making it really hard to run. We're one of the better rush defenses in the country right now, and that's something that we should take pride in. I'm hoping that we can keep that going because Tulane's going to try to run the ball, right? I think they're running back Makai. I can't think of his last name on top of my head now.
Makai Hughes.
Makai Hughes. Hughes is what it is. If I was going to say Henry, but Makai Hughes. He has what, 200 yards this season? 150?
Yeah, he's up to 187. So basically
187. Right. Yeah. He's just under 200 yards. And they're going to try to run the ball
against Kansas State.
Right. See? So if you can slow him down and make Mensah throw more, and like you said, Mensah doesn't throw it deep very often. He spins more in the intermediate, and they take him and break those out into bigger plays because they have guys that if you get the ball in space, what happens, John? They make plays. That's what we need to do this game, too. We need to get the ball to guys in space so they can make plays.
Yeah, the Tulane defense actually did a decent job kind of keeping everything in front of them against Kansas State. They didn't allow Avery Johnson to have any big plays. He threw for under 200 yards, but they were able to take care of the football, and that's what made the difference. Kansas State won the turnover battle 2-0 against the Tulane Green Wave. So even though they played from behind for a lot of that game, their talent level, some of the experience that they have on their team, but also taking care of the football became the difference in the football game. I think Tulane's defense is going to be pretty good, but they did allow, a lot of rushing yards to the Kansas State offense. So now we're not in the same place as Kansas State right now. They've got things put together a little bit better on the offensive line and in their rushing attack. Yeah. But mayhaps Oklahoma can actually get some things going. Possibly. Hey, what, Angels in the outfield? It could happen.
Hey, they're going to shock us. They always do. They seem to just have this tendency of showing up in games where we're just like, man, we ain't got no chance. Like, Vegas still has us. It's funny. The spread opened at 14.5. It's now 13.5. It's only moved 1 point, and literally all the traffic is on Tulane. That tells me everything I need to know. Vegas is like, either Vegas is punting and saying, look, we're just going to lose money, or they're like, no, please put more on Tulane. We appreciate you putting money on Tulane. The Houston game was one that I thought, because it was funny because in the Houston one, the spread went from 26 to 30 and then it dropped all the way down to 27. I was like, oh, okay. So it balanced out and Vegas is like, we want more people in Oklahoma to jump on this. I think that in this situation, it's like, why would you only go a point? I figured it'd be like closer to like 7 at this point. Feels 7 points. I'd be concerned because it's so high. I expect us to definitely win the game, and there should be a chance for us to cover the spread.
We'll get more into that on our Friday show here on Locked On Sooners. So make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out again to all the everydayers for tuning in and making Locked On Sooners their first listen every single day. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all the social media platforms. And again, you can subscribe to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. For your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But for Jay Smith, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.